I believe a lot of people make a mistake in this market. Too many people focus on what particular altcoin to buy. But the issue is everything is going up at the same time. So when Bitcoin goes up, most altcoins go up as well. When Bitcoin goes down, most altcoins go down. So instead of hyper focusing on which altcoin is going to outperform, isn't it better to try to figure out where Bitcoin is headed from here? Isn't it better to focus on the macro? For example, have a look at this chart. This is the realized cap net position change. And when this peaks, we very often see at least a temporary peak in the Bitcoin price as well. So that was at 72K over here. Then we went down to around 60K, and then we had our secondary rally to 100K. Again, a peak, and we went back down. Now, currently, we see the market heating up again, but we are very far away from those peak values. In other words, there is still a lot of way to go. Now, what is this realized cap position change? It's basically the change of the realized price. The realized price is the average cost basis of the market. So what did Bitcoin trade for on average across all wallets? The current price is just the recent transaction. The realized price is all of the transactions that have ever happened for the Bitcoin that's currently held in the various wallets. And so when the current price is currently above the realized price, it means that people are in profit. When the current price is below the realized price, it means on average people are in the red. And that's why it's so great to always buy when the market is particularly depressed, when people on average are in the red. Because most people, when they are in the red, they just keep on holding Bitcoin, because long-term Bitcoin appreciates, long-term the monetary base expands faster than Bitcoin gets mined. And so over time, the Bitcoin price goes up. Now, currently, we are very far away from the realized price, which is at 44,900. However, I still believe there is some more way to go up from here. Let me show you why I think so. Have a look at this graph. This shows the long-term holder supply change. So when this is going down, it means the long-term holders are selling. When this is up, it means the long-term holders are buying. And my personal buying and selling behavior is pretty much in line with what we see the long-term holders are doing. I am back in the market. I am bullish. The long-term holders are buying again. The long-term holders sold well. They also bought back in very well. Then they sold again at the peak, and now they're buying back in. In general, I believe the major driver for Bitcoin's price is psychology. There is no real way to value Bitcoin, right? What's a fair price of BTC? Is it 1 million? Is it 10 million? Is it only $50,000? There is no real way as a discounted cash flow method. We can't just sum up the present value of all the future cash flows. This doesn't work for Bitcoin. But what does work is to see what's the current reference price of the market. Or in other words, at what point in time did Bitcoin change hands? When many Bitcoin changed hands at a particular point in time, we tend to see trend reversals. So for example, over here, right, this was the 3 arrows collapse or the FTX collapse. Some people panic sold, other people bought the dip. So there's a new reference price. That's then when the current trend, at that time bearish, can turn around. The same is true when we are bullish. When many people buy into the rally, the long-term holders are selling, then the current rally can slow down a little bit. Now, right now, we don't see that much realized profit plus loss. In other words, the current bullish momentum still can continue. At least this is how I interpret the data. In general, we want to buy when people are in losses. We want to sell when people are in profit. And here we see the total supply in loss. So that's in orange. Again, when people are in losses, we want to buy. And we are not yet at the low levels that we saw at the beginning of the year. Right, when Bitcoin was at around 100K. We are close with the price to 100K, but we are not yet at those low levels in the supply in loss. We can also make the distinction between long and short-term holder losses. Of course, the long-term holders being in peak losses is always the best time to buy. We are very far away from this, but unfortunately those opportunities of the price going below the realized price only happens every 3 to 4 years. So I wouldn't hold my breath. I think it's better to just ride the current momentum. At some point, the current price will again approach the realized price, but who knows where the realized price will be at that point, because it continues to rise over time. Besides the long-term holder supply change, so the long-term holders buying, we've also got the ETFs. So that's this line in green. And the ETFs are buying again. Now, compared to the long-term holders, the ETFs don't have as much of a price impact. However, it's good that most of the time the ETFs tend to buy. We can actually have a look at the number of Bitcoin that's held by the ETFs over time. It started out with 640,000 Bitcoin in January of 2024, and now that's at 1.18 million Bitcoin. We are very close to the all-time high. So let's take away the current Bitcoin price. Here is the number of BTC held by the ETFs. We are seeing green flags across the board. For example, the derivatives market, the options market. In options, we've got something called implied volatility. So how much does the market anticipate the price to fluctuate? Now, usually the price fluctuates more when the price is going down. So on average, prices go down faster than they go up. They tend to appreciate very slowly and then they crash fast. Now, when the market anticipates very little volatility, that means that the market rather thinks directionally that we're going up. And so have a look at this. This is the Bitcoin options at the money implied volatility. So that's for 3 and 6 month options, and it is coming down. In other words, the derivative traders do not believe that we suddenly see a crash in Bitcoin. I'm currently very bullish. The main reason for this is this chart over here. It shows how much more dry powder is on the side, or in how many stable coins are not yet deployed in risk on assets. If there's a lot of capital that went into crypto, but that capital is not yet swapped into the altcoins, it's not yet swapped into Bitcoin, then this might happen in the future. And if it happens, of course, the prices go up. So this is the stable coin dominance. And in the last 1.5 years, we tended to trend between 5% and 9%. And when this is going down, it means stablecoins get deployed. It means prices go up. So if we see a similar rate of deployment compared to November of 2024, then Bitcoin is likely going to go up very sharply. To what price level? If we just overlay the price movements from that deployment to the current prices, we get to a level of roughly $140,000 per Bitcoin. This is, I believe, where Bitcoin is headed. And this will be a major change in Bitcoin's price dynamics, because historically Bitcoin tended to top out much earlier. If we just connect with a curved line the tops of prior bull markets, we should already top out at around 111K. So that's this chart over here. We've just a curved line. We connect all the prior tops. So this is a very long-term chart. It starts in 2010. And if we take that as our invisible ceiling in Bitcoin, then 111K might already be the highest price. But I believe we are going to cross that. I believe we will see a lot of the stablecoins getting deployed, pushing up the Bitcoin price to 140K. It's not easy to try to time the micro, right? To try to figure out what happens next week or next month. Nobody has a crystal ball. We can just directionally say that the market is currently expanding. Now, how quickly is it expanding? When we look at the stablecoin market cap, so the conversions from traditional finance into crypto, that's at a very fast rate. You're probably going to be surprised looking at this here. So it's a stablecoin market cap over time. And when we look at how quickly did that expand in the last year, the answer is 44%. And this is already a logarithmic chart. It seems like we are expanding at a somewhat constant rate. Bitcoin grows at a similar rate. So of course we've got our dramas, of course we have our drops every now and then, but if money continues to flow into the space at this rate, over time, prices have to go up. Now, finally, we enter a market again where everything is going up. And I think it's important to seize the opportunity, not just randomly buy things, but buy the things that tend to go up more than others. Now, that's easier said than done, but let's have a look at Virtual, for example. How can we find something like Virtual's protocol not just a week ago, but how can we pick it up early, as in when it just was a few cents? I don't think that we have to reinvent the wheel. We don't have to be the best traders on the planet to figure this out. We can just have a look at the people that tend to move markets, that tend to make good trades. For example, here's somebody that did not necessarily always do the best trades. So here are signals by Ben Armstrong. He got some virtual tokens very early on allocated for a promotion. He sold this for very low prices, 1.4, 1.3 cents. So yeah, following people like Ben Armstrong or BitBoy Crypto is probably not the best idea. But there are some people that do make regularly very nice trades. For example, this guy over here, Brian Young. He's got more than 2 million subscribers and he mainly talks about crypto. He was one of the very first influencers that we track that bought virtual token for very low prices. 15K over here for 7 cents. The community talked about this quite a bit, 61 comments. That was more than 1 year ago on the 21st of March 2024. And so the rest is history. The price went up by more than 6,000%, even after a subsequent crash and then the current recovery. The price is still up by almost 2,000%. Crypto is not necessarily a game where the people with the best fundamental analysis win. I think it's much more of a player versus player game. It's much more of a game of insiders versus the not so well informed retail investor. Even though YouTubers like Brian Young do very good crypto content and they also trade well, it's very hard to figure out where do they actually put their money and how much do they invest. Even when I search here for the Virtuals token, I can't even find a dedicated video on Virtual on his channel. The token might be hidden somewhere in those list videos, but that's about it. Now the first dedicated video on Virtuals protocol was published half a year ago over here. That video outperformed the average video. The average video is here in gray and the performance of that video is in blue. At the time, the price was at 41 cents. And even from that point onwards, we went up by more than 1,000%. So I publish videos on various altcoins regularly on this channel. I try to find the ones that still have a lot of upside potential. So feel free to subscribe over here. Now, if it's that easy to make money just by looking at what other people are doing, how do we actually know that early what, say, BitBoy Crypto or what Brian Young is doing? The answer is wallet tracking. With some on-chain analytics, we found out what kind of wallet is owned by what influencer. For example, over here, we found 5 wallets of Brian Young. In total, we track almost 600 wallets. So that's of various influencers. And the way we find those wallets is by looking at what kind of NFTs are they holding, what kind of tokens are they holding. Let's say they share in a video that they have $150,000 worth of a very small token. There aren't too many wallets that might own that amount. We're looking at related wallets, deposit addresses on centralized exchanges. We're doing all kinds of small tips and tricks, and those are all explained here in this little tutorial course on wallet discovery. So that can be found below at thebitcoinstrader.com. And so the premium community of this channel is focusing on that. We try to find new wallets, we share those wallets with others, and then we track the wallets. And then sometimes we find out that some influencers aren't always ethical. For example, here's a video by one influencer that talked about the champ token just after we got the buying alert. So that's then the way it works, right? The influencer buys a small cap cryptocurrency and then afterwards promotes it on the social media following, and then the social media following is buying into the token, pushing up the price even further. So a classical pump and dump, and the winners are always the people that buy in early, before all of that social media publishing has been done. That's what the wallet tracking is so useful for. And so clearly it's time to make money again. Since October of 2023, more and more money is flowing into the market. The stablecoin market cap is going up. So as per tendency, cryptocurrencies should go up in price. Now the problem is that returns are very concentrated in just a few winners, right? It's a winner takes most game. It's player versus player. And the vast majority of people still lose even in market conditions like this. But yeah, we are tracking those almost 600 wallets. We've got our dedicated influencer trade channel. And when we see insiders like the Pipicoin or Based AI team accumulating a very small market cap token, for example over here, KEK, that's a signal of today, then it's likely that the price rises, right? There are all these accumulation buys, and as long as insiders buy more and more of a very small token, things tend to go up. So this is now an appreciation of almost 200% over the span of a week. And so yeah, there are two ways to make money. We can simply just take random tokens, and they are likely going to appreciate to a degree. But if you want to take full opportunity of this market, it's better to follow the smart money, right? It's better to buy the virtual protocols of this world when it's just a few cents worth of a token and then moves to several dollars. I'm of course sharing my own trades in premium as well. That goes without saying. And so feel free to check it out. It's currently $125 per month. There should be a link somewhere here on the screen, probably at the bottom right, that leads you directly to that page. If it's your first time here, feel free to subscribe. I publish this regularly. A like would be very much appreciated as well. It helps the channel grow. See you next time on YouTube, or see you in premium. Cheers.